welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I am your host, Jessica, and I am here with Catherine Kurtz to talk about Feast, which is such an interesting book. And I have a lot of thoughts about it, but I would love it if you, in your own words, could tell us a little bit about yourself and then give us your pitch for this book.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here, Jessica. It's really great to talk to you. Feast is a story of Mina, a mixed race girl. She's born with an extraordinary sense of taste, and it's about what the world makes of her and ultimately what she makes of it. That's my sort of summary, I suppose, of the book. I myself, I'm a painter, an artist, and a writer of fiction. I live in the UK, and I'm mixed race too. And yeah, I'm very happy to talk to you. It's kind of wonderful and wild that my book is being read over there.
So where did you get the idea for this book? Because it's set in the late 1800s, and there's a few different areas. It's set in London, but it's also set in France, and it explores a lot of different themes. But you have a food background yourself, am I correct?
I do, yes. Like most artists, I have day jobs, and my day jobs have been food. So I work as a palate. I judge. I'm a chocolate expert. I'm a sort of consultant, taste consultant, and I write about food as a kind of, day job stuff. My heart and soul work is my fiction, but I also love food. So yes, so that's the food background part. In terms of locations, I've had family living in France for most of my life, and I grew up in London. So I really wanted to set it in places that are very close to my heart, where I also know the food a bit, and that's important to me. Having said that, the actual spaces that the book inhabits are fictional. This isn't historical fiction in a kind of strict sense of kind of real people or real places. I'm creating a kind of fairy tale of sorts, if a dark fairy tale.
So, Mina's sense of taste, it's really just this tangible, supernatural thing. It's
Mm,
almost like the magic is there, but it's so light that you're not, like, it's otherworldly, but it doesn't seem outright otherworldly immediately to the people around her. Where did her whole story come from for you? Her mom is she was a British prostitute. Her father was an Indian spice merchant, and she has a really interesting history, which brings her to the estate where things happen. But yeah,
yeah.
where did it all come together for you?
Where did it come from? Thank you for all of those points. I think in terms of the kind of magic, the amplified sense of taste, which has this kind of unreal quality, I I don't know that I would call what I'm writing necessarily kind of magic realist, but I think it relates to that. I think of kind of great Latin American literature and ghosts and things. But I think that I like to amplify certain things that might be real in order to make a greater point. So I experience taste very heightened. I think if we take that further, it can be a sort of metaphor for experiencing the world intensely and being unconventional and other and maybe not fitting in that easily with others around her, which is also relates to her race. So my own background is that each of my grandparents came from a different continent. I'm Indian, Ashkenazi Jewish, and white mixture. And I think the business of being mixed is quite important in the sense of it not being conventional in the space where you live or you're born, but equally it not having a clear other place to live. So there's a sort of inherent search for belonging in being mixed, I would say, and also in being unconventional, in being sort of in some way unusual to others. And I think she has both of those things, which I think is very interesting. And I think really I wanted to explore something of what it means to be an unconventional woman in the world. I wanted to expose something about how society can treat people it deems different, including those women, and in many ways women altogether. So I've kind of made a fairy tale to explore those those things, if that makes sense. I hope it does.
No, it does. And the thing that's, that comes up is her mixed heritage is viewed with suspicion in some cases. In some cases, it's viewed as the reason why she has, like, oh, there are mystics in India.
Mm.
And there's very little viewing Mina for who she is, depending on who she's interacting with, which just kind of brought her whole, I suppose, just difficulties navigating through the world together. First of all, did you say you were an artist as well?
Yes, I'm a painter.
Did
Yes,
you paint
first and foremost.
did you paint the cover of the book? Because it's gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. I love the cover. No, I didn't paint it, but I've painted some paintings around it. I paint in a quite highly observed way myself. I have a bit of an obsession with kind of rigor of observation and noticing. No, I'm represented by the Red Fern Gallery in London. I went to art school. I've been a painter since I was a student. That's my kind of first career. So this follows. It took me a lot longer to feel that I had the right or the ability to use words. But the cover, I think, is certainly influenced by the fact that I'm a painter because I had wonderful conversations with my publisher, with Berkeley, about ideas of what how we might visualize. And in fact, I sent them pictures that I had done, and I sent them, which we've used in some of the other materials, and I sent them some work by an artist, Jan David Stahiem, who is a Netherlandish kind of early still life painter. So that painting was painted in 1643. And it's in the Wallace collection in London, and I'm so pleased and proud that it's on the cover with the great, wonderful, hot pink lettering that makes it all wonderful and up to date and gives it a bit of attitude.
When you were building the estate around Mina and who she would interact with in the present story, did you do a lot of research on the inner workings of how a household like that would work? I know you'd mentioned that it's not based on any particular place, and it's not historical fiction, but I'm curious how deep into that type of culture and society you went.
Good question. I think yes. I'm not an exhaustive researcher because I'm usually very keen to get into my story. I also don't always know everything that I'm going to need. And while the Chateau de Belle isn't a real place, it is very strongly based in terms of aesthetic and style and rooms and grounds on chateaus in the Touraine in France that I know very, very well. So it's kind of a composite as opposed to an entire fantasy. It is very rooted in the real, which is also true of reading that I have done and experience of established traditional patriarchal structures in French and also English kind of upper class society, which admittedly I don't have experience of at that time, 100, 125 years ago. Um, but that, in a way, I think one of the fascinating things about setting something in the past is it allows us some perspective from which to view things. Um, but it also helps us to see how shockingly relevant and current those same issues are. So, in a sense, what I'm talking about is privileged men who own property and have possession and are in control and are in charge. But the type of food I did huge amounts of research on. I've read all about escoffier and that French food turn of the century, the types of kitchens and the exterior and internal and interiors of that period of chateau I know super, super well from visiting many and many multiple times. So yes, it's not pure fantasy, but I have this drive to get into my story because that's the driver. I'm not one of those writers who sort of wants to put off writing and just wants to keep researching for years. My purpose is quite strong in the story, if that answers your question.
It does. Uh,
Good. Yeah.
the bouncing back and forth of the timelines. When Mina was younger, first with her mother, and then
Mm.
with her grandparents, and then the present. Present.
Yes, yes.
It's not present like now, but present for the later time period when she's older. Uh, what was it like to write across those time periods? I mean, you're writing you're writing through the eyes of a child, which informs a lot of her interactions when she's older as well, and
Mm.
why she reacts the way she does and how she perceives things. What was that process like for you? Was it difficult to split those timelines?
It's so interesting. The process of writing a given book, I would say that anything I write would be different. If you read the first draft of Feast, I think you would find it sort of eminently recognizable. So much of it was there in the first draft. And obviously we want the published book to feel so right as and of itself that no one can see the sort of work that goes in. But of course, it goes through a process of editing. And with this story, my first writing of it, the draft where you tell it to yourself, I wrote her chronologically. So I began with her birth and I wrote through her childhood and I wrote it chronologically. And then we did a very important edit where the reflections back and forth, juxtaposing parts of her past with where she gets to, was a kind of later structural development. And I think it's really powerful, and it was a fantastic thing for the story. But I told her I lived with her from birth through to the end of the book in a chronological order first.
Well, it really was beautifully done.
Thank you.
I enjoyed experiencing everything through her eyes, and the just sort of the way that everything was described. You had mentioned that it's not magical realism, but it does remind me a little bit of like Water for Chocolate in that way, which I think that maybe that was maybe that was a slight inspiration, perhaps.
I actually haven't read it,
Really, you should. You would love
so
it. You'd
no.
love it. I mean, not
Yeah,
not
okay.
in
I'm
not in
writing it
the way
down.
not in the way that I think that you will, find like, oh my goodness, this is so similar, but just kind of in that whole tone and the food theme. So I think
Mm.
I think you'll love it. But
Okay, wonderful.
but I think that you're going to see a lot of positive response to Feast, sort of in that sense that this is just sort of a book that It's very cognizant of senses. It's very cognizant of how women go through the world. And also, you'd mentioned just how people are perceived, people who are mixed race, and it's still very relevant. And, back then as well, it's interesting to see Mina's interactions with everybody who is really important in her life, including her mother, her grandparents, which is a little different, and then everybody who becomes a major player, um, how they perceive her. And it's very difficult to read this person being othered who really just wants to be part of something. And, she has this extraordinary gift and it's useful for a while, which means she's useful for a while. And that gains a very provisional acceptance. And I thought that it was just a really interesting story.
Oh, thank you so much. It's wonderful for it to be read and really, really heard. So thank you. I I think that her particular difference is one that I could write and I can relate to, but I think it stands for all difference, um, and any sense of being not quite comfortable or accepted. Um, I do think that, I mean, I don't reject the term magic realist. I just think that to describe the book as that, maybe someone might be expecting something other than what I've been able to do in this instance. Um, I I I do think that as a painter, very visual, with my palette, I think I experience the world in a deeply sensory way, and I wanted to write her fully immersed in that so that a reader could um, feel her, experience her vividly, not just what she sees, but what she tastes and smells and hears, and that therefore it would be hopefully very alive. Um, and then hopefully you care about her and you do care about those relationships and you do care about how how she experiences others and how their experience of her and the way they are with her is going to impact, because there's no greater tool really for a book than, I mean, books are empathy machines. Novels are these extraordinary empathy machines. And if we can immerse in someone and care about them, someone like us, someone completely different from us, then the world is a better place.
Thank you so much. Once again, this was Jessica with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page podcast. My guest was,
Catherine Kurtz.
and we are going to close this chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.